We will move into our next speaker. Trevor Helwig will make his way up here. He will talk about solar arrays at SMRID pump stations to achieve net zero. Trevor is the Technical Services Manager for the SMRID and has worked in irrigation water management for the past 17 years. SMRID delivers water to over 400,000 acres of irrigated agriculture from Raymond to Medicine Hat, and owns and operates a variety of water management infrastructure. The district is also the majority partner in IRCAN, as we've heard, and it's run in conjunction with the Tabor and Raymond districts. Trevor has been employed by the SMRID since 2006 and worked extensively on the district's irrigation rehab program during that period, has overseen a variety of projects including buried PVC pipelines, canal rehab, refurbishment of major canal structures. He's been involved in coordinating technical aspects of IRCAN's operations, the district's recent expansion, and the SMRID's dam safety program. More recently, he has been managing the development of 3 megawatt solar arrays to offset the district's internal power use. And let's welcome Trevor. Where'd you disappear to? There you
are. Thank you, Tom. Before I begin, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Gordon for his great presentation, as well as your years of service to IRCAN and the Main Canal Committee. Your positivity and your good-natured sense of humor are awesome attributes. Your experience and your leadership are things that we won't be able to replace. If you'll indulge me for a minute, there's a sexist pig, a racist jerk, and a Russian spy. They walk into a bar. Bartender looks up and says, "So what's going to be, Mr. President?" So I'm going to talk about solar arrays in SMRD to achieve net zero. So why would an irrigation district invest in solar arrays? I'm going to cover this in my presentation by first going over basic concepts related to solar net zero sites and microgeneration, and I will review the business case for solar at the 2 arrays that we've constructed at pump stations. Here's SMRD in a snapshot. We serve roughly 400,000 acres through about 2,000 kilometers of canals and pipelines. This infrastructure includes a number of electrical services, including 3 fairly large pump stations, as well as a number of other sites that require power. So looking at electricity use in SMRD, starting with electricity use at our 3 large pump stations, you can see from 2017 to 2019, we used from 2.2 million kilowatt hours of electricity to a high of 5 million kilowatt hours of electricity. In terms of dollars, $379,000 in 2019. 2018, $787,000 just for pumping. In addition to these pump stations, we have 127 unique electrical services. To cover those other sites, it's about $125,000 per year. That's what we pulled off the accounting system for 2019. Those other electrical services includes our 2 offices, our shops. We have automated canal check structures throughout the district, as well as a number of smaller tile drain pumps and screeners that are scattered throughout. So looking at a year like 2018, we had $900,000 in electricity fees. Should be mentioned, 2018 was the perfect storm for pumping because we had flooding in the spring. We had to run our pumps at Yellow Lake all summer. Yellow Lake is essentially a terminal drain. This was followed by droughts in mid-May that lasted throughout the summer, and we had to run our 2 big pump stations at Boyle and 12 and 40 Mile all summer. So still, on the average dry year, we're spending more than $500,000 in electricity fees. Bottom line is we're spending a lot on electricity. So a typical comment you hear about solar that Mike touched on in his presentation, a lot of my bill, it's transmission and distribution. Why bother trying to offset my electricity if I'm still having to pay 2/3 of my bill, essentially? So significance of rate 26. Rate 26, it's your electricity rate for irrigation. It ties transmission and distribution to your usage. So if you can get your usage down by offsetting it through solar, you're reducing that portion of your bill on the T&D side as well. So an example of billing for an irrigation pivot, this is from Laurent Torrey. He is an SMRD farmer in the Grassy Lake area, former SMRD chair. It shows that the cost of electricity itself, it hasn't increased since 2010. It's in fact gone down a little bit for Laurent's example. But the T&D charges they've more than doubled. We're seeing 120% increase over the past 10 years. In graphical form, you can see electricity is going up. It's mostly on the T&D side, but you're paying more than 13 cents per kilowatt hour just for transmission and distribution. Overall, 17 to 18 cents per kilowatt hour. So what is net zero? It's producing the same amount of energy that you're consuming over 12 months. We're installing solar to offset electricity bill, or offset our bill and achieve that. We're not trying to go off the grid. We're still buying electricity for the most part, more than half the time when it's needed. Also, we're sizing our rate based on historical data and not on the size of the pump station or the service. So with net zero, a portion is used for on-site pumping with the excess sold to the grid during non-pumping times, for example, during the wintertime. So what is the significance of the on-site self-use? Any guesses? So it's about 33%. That's what we've modeled, plus or minus 5%. It's a variable amount, depends on how much you're pumping, but it's still significant, and you're knocking down those T&D charges when you're pumping. 33% seems a bit low. Well, why is it like 50%? It's sunny more than half the time in the summer. It's low because it's variable. You're only producing electricity during the day when it's sunny, and you're reaching those high outputs only for maybe 3-4 hours during the day. So output is lower in the morning, lower in the late afternoon. This is a good time to talk about the microgeneration regulation and some of the rules for exporting to the grid. A large microgenerator means greater than 150 kilowatts, but less than 5 megawatts. If you're greater than 150 kilowatts, you're paid the hourly pool price. If you're less than 150 kilowatts, you have the choice of being paid out the commercial rate, or if you want to, you can choose to get paid the hourly pool price. So how does this work for when you're exporting? You're not paid directly a cash sum. You're essentially given credit for export on your invoice. Your grid export can either be either subtracted off your bill, or it can be paid out, settled monthly, or you can accrue it and settle it once a year. So the business case, it's based on the value of on-site use, as well as the number of kilowatt hours that are exported to the grid. The value that is exported to the grid for SMRID sites, it's based on the pool price. So looking at exporting to the grid at the pool price, average prices, it's not really relevant to talk about averages if you're including the nighttime data. Solar is only produced during the day. So for the example, for 2019, what we observed at our Irrican plants, we were seeing pricing of about $51.38 per megawatt hour. That's 24/7 over the summer. What we saw at our office where we have panels, we were seeing a weighted average pool price of about $80. So to explain, why is this higher? Is there some kind of solar premium? Just to reiterate, there's no premium. It just works out that the pool price is higher during the day. It's incidental that solar output is peaking at the same time when pricing is highest. So this graph, it's also a good time to talk about the capacity factor of solar. Capacity factor, it's the ratio of energy generated over a year divided by installed capacity. So for solar, the capacity factor, it's about 16%. If you want to compare it to wind is about 33%, so it's windy a third of the time. If we look at our hydro plants, our capacity factor is about 35 to 40%. It would be higher, but we're only running water during the summer. So the variability of the pool price, I just thought I'd show some examples from January. This is what the pool price has been generally like the past few years. It's been around that $40 to $50 per megawatt range. In January, we had that cold snap, and we saw quite a bit of variability. You can see the third week of January, the pool price, this is what producers are paid. It spiked to $1,000 per megawatt hour for 3-4 days there in January. So great times to be producing power if you can get it. It's a bad time to be buying power at the pool price if you happen to be on a variable rate agreement. So it doesn't happen very often. We see little blips in the summertime, but it's kind of a cool example I thought I'd show. So the pool price over the past 13 years, this has been since 2007. You can see the average is about $60 per megawatt hour, but there's definitely some highs and some lows. So what this means is if you're a price taker, like SMRID is, some years you win, some years you lose. Overall, though, we are coming out ahead. So some examples of what we've done. At the Bow Island Lateral 12 pump station, this is our only pump station to serve a large irrigated block. Bow Island 12 irrigators formed a water co-op within SMRD. They pay a surcharge for electricity currently. To recoup the cost and our investment in solar, what we're doing is we're billing the co-op for electricity produced by solar. So in essence, the benefit isn't going to the co-op within SMRID, rather they're sharing the benefit with all water users. Bow Island 12 the pump station is situated just south of the town of Bow Island. It serves a 4,100 acre area. Built in 1986, there's 8 pumps to serve about 82 cubic feet per second. It was designed for 80 PSI at the pivot point. We added a variable speed pump in 2018 to reduce electricity flows, particularly to reduce electricity fees at lower flows, and it's approximately 2,000 horsepower. Quick snapshot of our electricity billing the past few years. You can see on average we're using about 1.2 million kilowatt hours, and billing is about $200,000. Here's the layout for the 700 kilowatt system that was built. It should be mentioned that we had a grant from Energy Efficiency Alberta. The grant program, it expired about 6 months ago. It covered 35% of capital costs or 75 cents per watt, whichever came out lower. So note adjacent, we used our main canal to not take up a significant footprint or take up cropland. We went with trackers at this location to reduce the amount of area that was required. Trackers increased that capacity factor significantly by changing the axis of the solar array to optimize versus the position of the sun. If we went with an equivalent fixed axis array, it would have had to be much bigger, about 1.14 megawatts DC. So the panels were produced by LG out of South Korea. I have a little video here that just shows what happens when it gets windy. The panels have a wind speed detector on there, and they essentially self-leveled to reduce damage from the wind during those periods. Inverters are provided by Huawei out of China. We have essentially a 15-year bumper-to-bumper warranty from NMAX. We're protected against hail through the agreement. In addition, we have insurance through the district's insurance. We have 25-year production guarantee with NMAX and the supplier. We do acknowledge that there will be a loss of about 0.8% production per year. So what the guarantee is, it's guaranteeing 80% output in 25 years' time. So 25 years from now, we expect to see 80% of what we will see in year 1. We expect the panels to last more than 30 years, but we understand that there will be that loss in output over time. 40 Mile Pump Station, it was built in 1987, around the same time as Bow Island 12. It's not built to serve irrigation acres directly, but rather it's to pump irrigation storage from 40 Mile Reservoir into the main canal. There's 10 pumps at 959 horsepower each. Design output is 20 cubic meters per second at 30 meters head. We can push a little bit more out at high speed when the reservoir is at a higher water level. Good time to mention that SMRD and TRD have recently gone through a 10% expansion. We do expect to use 40 Mile more in the future to match flows and to take advantage of that storage. So the solar array it's an investment in reducing our future costs. Here's photos of the array from October when it was still under construction by Terralta, the subcontractor. Again, the size of the array, it's based on historical use, not on horsepower or kilowatts associated with the pump station. So we're building about a 1.75 megawatt solar array, fixed axis array at 40 Mile. We're installing this on district land in an area that had been leased to an adjacent farmer for grazing. Business case for solar, we looked at several scenarios. We basically modeled the value of self-use against the credit we're getting on our bill. We're choosing to finance the project rather than pay it outright. So what we wanted to see is that the financial benefits cover the cost of the lease. So the first scenario that we looked at was looking at a pool price of $80 per megawatt hour, taking account of the cost of the lease and the benefits to the district. At $80 per megawatt hour, we always saw a positive cash flow. So meaning we met the cost of the lease and we were in the black. The break-even point we saw from 2012 to 2018, looking at usage, was $45 per megawatt hour. Break-even over that time period, there were some years where we were at a loss, some years when we were at a surplus. modeling 2012 to 2018 using the actual pool price. Again, some years we were ahead, some years we were having a surplus. Overall, we showed a slight surplus over that time. So in conclusion, there's some risk involved, mostly related to the pool price, but we're comfortable with the risk going forward. We like these projects in that they're self-financing. We have a really favorable lease agreement with ENMAX for a 15-year term. We have a really good partnership excuse me, with ENMAX, and it mitigates several concerns related to operations and maintenance, hail, wind, et cetera, over the 15-year term with ENMAX. We do see a loss in output of about 0.8% over time, but we have a 25-year guarantee to have 80% output in year 25. So we do understand what we're getting into, and we are protected by that guarantee. We have insurance against vandalism, but that is a concern. We like that these projects are not taking up a significant footprint or affecting cropped agriculture. Another thing to mention is that solar arrays were being implemented successfully by irrigators at the farm level before we proceeded, including 3 of our board members, Alex Ostrup, Corey Nelson, and Gerard Oosterhuis. They had implemented quite a bit of solar. So we really believed in the business case as an organization, and there was a high level of understanding about the business case of solar by our board. So why aren't we doing this? Why isn't everybody doing this if the financials are so strong? Well, you're hitting the nail on the head. Not everybody is doing it, but a lot of people are doing it. There's solar happening in some shape or form at BRID, TID, WID. Within a year, solar is going to be visible in lots of places throughout southern Alberta. I think in 10, 15 years, it might be as common as wind. As Gord mentioned, Erie Can Power, they recently passed a motion to assume ownership of the arrays. It's a way for Erie Can to further defer corporate taxation, which is fantastic for us as an organization. The depreciation can be written off in the first year. So I'm probably explaining it wrong, but if you have any questions, Joyce is just sitting there. So I'd like to thank our partners on the Main Canal, TID, RID, as well as Energy Efficiency Alberta and our partner ENMAX on this project. Any questions?